You know, there's a TV show that makes me feel good about myself. Though that's why we watch it anyways. And I've watched one episode. It made me feel good. That was it. All I needed. It's a show called American Pickers. And see, some people, they love it. It's awesome. I saw it one time, and that's all I needed. Because this is the one I remember, this episode. This guy, they go into either Pennsylvania, Indiana somewhere, and they want to find the treasures that people have stacked in their house, the antiques. So they go to this guy's house. It's a farmhouse in the middle of rural America, and they go in there, and he goes, "Oh, I guess you're here for my stuff." So they brings them out to the garage, and they're pickers, as in they're trying to get through the garage, and they're looking, oh, here's some good stuff, and they put a couple offers in, they buy some things, and then the owner goes, "Well, I'd imagine you wanted to see my barn, don't you?" And they look at each other and go, "Yeah." So they go out to this barn, not just the garage, this barn that is just stacked. It's stuff stacked on top of each other. It's all over the place. And they're trying to get through there, knocking things over as they're walking through. You can see this barn. Maybe it looks like your barn, I don't know. No, but they get through these things. It's beautiful stuff in there. It's all dust covered. And this is beautiful. And they get some more things. And then the guy goes, "Well, I imagine that you want to see my other barn, right?" And they look at each other, "Yes." They go into this barn. They need a crowbar to open the door on this. It's not been opened in like 30 years. Stuck back in there. They got cars and just antiques. They go, these people still have those things? And then it's going in there, and their eyes are like this. It's huge. Oh, this is great. But the reason why that makes me feel good is that I always think that other people have clutter problems. I don't. I see this show and I'm saying, holy smokes, they haven't cleaned this stuff in years. I don't have a problem at all. But we all have kind of a clutter problem in some way. You know, maybe it's in our schedule, that we clutter up our schedule. It's overpacked and you can't even find your way through your schedule. There's not enough time. Maybe it's emotionally that we are just a mess. We are such cluttered messes emotionally. But I want to go here today. Some of us are just spiritually cluttered up. We have this huge barn, this spiritual barn that's just packed full of stuff that we learned this as a kid, so obviously that's true. And that's the way we understood it. And that's how it is. And it's so cluttered full of stuff that we can't make sense out of it. It's been covered up with dust, and we can't make sense of it all. Or maybe someone told you this is how it was supposed to be, or imposed it upon you, or it's a tradition within your family or your church, and that must be the way it is. And I'm thinking maybe if we decluttered, and then we simplified it all, just weeded through it and said, this is faith. This is faith. It's not some cluttered up faith filled with all stuff. What if this was our focus? And we made sense of our spiritual lives this way. This is, I hope that we can go this way, because the Apostle Paul talked to people just like us who were so spiritually cluttered. They had so many traditions, so many things that this is the way it is. And Paul had to say, people, I want to help simplify this for you. I want to declutter your spiritual barn, and I want us to focus in on this is faith. And that's where I want to go today as well as the next couple weeks. And if you want to follow along today, it's in your program. If you don't have one, you can talk to Doug in the back. He's still got some extra bulletins. But there's no screen today, so you're out of luck on that one. You need a program to follow along. So I'm going to read a little bit out of Philippians chapter 3. I'll give you some time to find it if you brought your Bible on that one. But I want to talk about an uncluttered faith. And Paul, he starts off the chapter of Philippians 3 and says, let me tell you my spiritual pedigree. I am like the best. I have followed every tradition. I am ethnically just the perfect religious person. He says, "Oh, this is wonderful. And, all of these things, I give to the poor, I fast all the time, I go to worship every week, I pray loudly." And then he jumps in and talks to spiritually cluttered people. He says this: "I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done. Yes, everything is worthless compared with the infinite value of knowing Jesus Christ as my Lord. For his sake, I've discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage, so that I could gain Christ and become one with him. I no longer count on my own righteousness through obeying the law. Rather, I become righteous through faith in Christ. For God's way of making us right with himself depends on faith. I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that raised him from the dead. I want to suffer with him, sharing in his death, so that one way or another I will experience the resurrection from the dead." That's our Paul. Our Paul, who was like a spiritual giant. And he said, it's all garbage compared to knowing Christ. C.S. Lewis walked into a room for his presentation. He was early, and the people were having a discussion. Some might say it was an argument, however you look at discussions like that. And it was getting heated, and all of a sudden he sat down, and there was a lull, because anytime the teacher walks in, there's a lull. And he goes, "Well, what's all the ruckus about?" You can imagine a British accent saying that. I can't really pull that off. But he goes, "What's all the ruckus about?" And one of the guys goes, "We're debating what's unique about Christianity." And Lewis goes, "Oh, that's easy. It's grace." And then all of a sudden these students start thinking about what's unique about Christianity, and they go, "Well, I guess he's got something with that." Buddhists, they have to follow an 8-fold path. And they got to do all these things before they're enlightened. The Hindus, they believe in this karma thing, and it's all about what you do. And then you can have karma, because if you do certain good things, then good things come to you. And it's what you do. Even Jews, they have this moral code that you have to follow the law. You don't follow the law, bad things happen. And even the Muslims, they have this code of love, and that you have to follow this. And they're all the same, except for Christianity that says, we're going to be uncluttered. We're going to be simple. God's love is unconditional. It's unconditional. And that's grace. It's a grace thing. We think that these things are all so spiritually valuable, and they're utterly worthless to God. He says, that's not what I called you to. There's nothing compared to knowing Jesus. There's nothing compared to knowing Jesus. No. I'll tell you a little bit my story. 35 years ago, I would have said, this is my story. Maybe you can identify with this. 35 years ago, I said, I was brought up in the church. I was baptized as a little kid. Man, I was in right away. And my parents, my dad was the janitor. So when the church was open, he's opening it, and we needed to come. I've got a picture of my brother and my sister and my dad, and we're all holding on to this broom because we're really good people. We're helpers. We do things at church. And I had Sunday school teachers. They would teach me the Lord's Prayer. And they taught me, the 10 Commandments. They taught me all these fun things like the Apostles' Creed. I had these catechism teachers, very stern-faced elders. And they taught me the catechism, the Heidelberg Catechism. And we would go twice every week to church. Twice. And we couldn't miss, or else bad things happened. The church falls down if we don't go, because nobody can open the church. And I went to Christian schools all my years, and I learned all the rules there. And you know the rule, right? Don't smoke or drink or chew or go out with girls that do, right? You knew this, right? Those are the rules. And some of us are going, whoa, broke that one right away. How did that happen? And I came to the same realization that Paul had. That's all garbage compared to knowing Jesus. All these things, they don't matter compared to knowing Jesus. Oh, you went twice on Sunday. Do you know Jesus? Oh, you went to a Christian school. Do you know Jesus? And I had to figure out that I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know him. I knew all about him. I didn't know Jesus. And Paul echoes this as loudly as he can. It's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. And in all these things, I said that I said this, I need to clarify. They're not spiritually worthless. They're only worthless compared to knowing Jesus. I went to a Christian school. There was great things I learned there. There was wonderful things. We had to learn Bible verses, and those are still so deeply ingrained in my heart that I can't do it a different way because that makes so much sense. I can't imagine someone not doing those. I learned the catechism, and that gives me this huge framework for seeing the world. These are wonderful things, but they are worthless compared to knowing Jesus. And I will give you a short catechism lesson here, right here. All of this gets boiled down into 3 words. And we're going to spend most of our time on 2 words, but it breaks down to 3 words. Guilt, grace, and gratitude. You know, some of us grew up with the sin, salvation, and service, and those 3 words, but they're the same 3 words. And we're going to talk about guilt and grace. And we'll spend a little bit more on gratitude next week and the week to come. But that's the framework of saying, I know Jesus because I know my guilt and grace through Jesus. And every living second is gratitude towards him. But let me talk about the guilt a second, because we don't talk about guilt. We can't. There's certain things that you can't do in this world. In our culture, you can't do this thing. You can't tell someone that they're wrong. Have you ever tried to do that? Even your kids. Excuse me, you're wrong. What? Of course I'm right. Now pull a tantrum, or however it goes. You can't do this. Little Johnny, what's 1 + 1? 91. And you can't tell them, no, it's 2. You can't do that because nobody wants to hear that they're wrong, that doesn't make sense. You know, we go one step further. Do you believe that everybody goes to heaven? Well, yeah, of course, because God's a good God. He loves us. Okay, everybody goes to heaven. Well, where do you come up with that? Well, everybody's basically good inside. Everybody's loving, not to everybody, but to most people, and that we average it out. You know, it's a scale. And we have to come to terms with saying, that's not what the Bible says. And that's telling people that what you think is right is not. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that we are broken and corrupted deep inside, that we have a guilt of sin that weighs on us, and there's nothing we can do about that. We can't clean ourselves in that way. And nobody wants to hear that. And our culture says you can't tell anybody that they're wrong, that they have guilt. You know, there was a theologian, I'll throw one more theologian out there. His name is Eenigenburg. He's just got a fun name. My name is Eenigenburg. It's a great name. He says this: we cannot not be sinners before God. I'll just say it again. We cannot not be sinners before God. And you're thinking, well, you could do that positively. But he's focusing in on the negative side of our nature. We are guilty before our God. We have this guilt thing. And we can't not be that way. That's just the way we are. We live in a sin-filled world. We have a corrupted, broken world, and it has affected everything about us. And we know that. Deep down we know that, don't we? That we're broken. You know, my catechism teacher said it this way. Are we sinners because we sin? Or are we sinners, or do we sin because we're sinners? And you're saying that's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. We sin because deep inside we're sinners. We have this guilt inside. Deep and down we're broken and corrupted. Any one of us can avoid a certain sin. We got people that are dealing with addictions. And they have taken it upon themselves. I am going to avoid this corruption in my life. I can avoid that sin. I can choose not to lie. I can choose not to sleep with my neighbor's wife or husband or whatever you have. I can choose not to do certain sins, but deep inside, I'm a sinner. Deep inside, I'm broken and corrupted. And there's a difference there. Because our culture says, well, you know, I can avoid sin. I do it every once in a while. And we do. But we don't talk about the guilt deep down and say that deep inside we're broken and we're sinners before God. But that's the part that we grab a hold of and said, I am a great sinner, but I have got a God who has given me grace. I've got a great Savior and I have got grace. Now Jesus says, I want to know Christ and experience the mighty power that has raised him from the dead. I want to know Jesus. And basically he goes, I need you to accept this grace. I need you to know Jesus to accept this grace. I've got a lot of people that say they know me. And some do. And maybe they've seen me. They've seen me I prayed before the city council meeting. Oh yeah, that's that guy with the long last name. I can't say it. But I know him, I've seen him. Or maybe they've seen me on the soccer field and say, oh, that guy, I don't like the way. But they know me that way. But they don't know me. Maybe they know me as a pastor. Maybe not their pastor, but they know that I'm a pastor. Well, you know, they don't know me. They might even know that I have a love of sitting across the seat from somebody and just talking about how good God is and how he has transformed lives. And I have a desire to see people get rid of the unforgiveness in their hearts so that they can have peace. But even then, they might not know me as a person, my brokenness inside. They might not know the things that I hold dear even beside those things. They don't know my heart. You know, Jesus, there was lots of people that said, I know Jesus. I know Jesus. Yeah, he's that Jewish guy. Yeah, I know him. Mary and Joseph's son. You know him now, right? There's lots of people that said they knew Jesus. At the end of times, there are going to be people that say, I know Jesus, therefore I have grace. Right? No, I know him because I feed the poor. You know, I clothe people with clothes. You know, I give money to the church. I do it. I know Jesus, right? Jesus will say, do I know you? You know, when you were doing all these things, did you do them because you knew me or because you wanted to do the things? Do you know me? Have we talked? Do we talk? Is this the first time? The Bible talks about a lot of people that they knew him. They knew him. And I'll give you a couple examples. There was Peter. Peter is sitting, got his disciples, Jesus' disciples are sitting in a circle talking, and Jesus asked him, who do people say I am? And Peter's just sitting there, and Peter's usually the first one to talk. He just looks around looks back at Jesus and says, well, Jesus, you're the Christ, the Son of God. Oh, yes, that's right. You know me. There was a centurion, this Roman soldier. He had a sick servant. And he comes to Jesus and says, would you heal my servant? And Jesus says, yep, I'll go with you and heals your servant. And then the centurion goes, not necessary. I know that even just the word from you, and you will heal him. And Jesus says, I have not seen such faith in all of Israel. This guy knew Jesus. There were two thieves on crosses. And one of them is kind of getting snarky and says, so you're the Messiah, are you? You can't even save yourself. You're stuck on this cross. You're dying. Hey, help us out here, bud. Save us. Can you do that? And then the one guy is saying, oh, don't you even fear God? You know, we've been sentenced to die because of what we did. We deserve to die, but this man's not done anything wrong. And then he does this. He goes, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And you heard it, right? He didn't say the sinner's prayer. He didn't go through 12 years of Christian school. He didn't even belong to a church. He never knew the Apostles' Creed or the Lord's Prayer, all of these things, but he knew Jesus. He knew that deep inside he was broken and corrupted and had guilt before our God. He was filled with sin. And this is what he knew. Even more than that, he knew that Jesus was the Savior. He was the Savior, the only one who could remove all of his sin. This thief knew Jesus. He was only on the cross with him a short time, but he knew Jesus. Because Jesus says this, I assure you that you will be with me today in paradise. Because Jesus knew him as well. Jesus knew him. And maybe that's the bigger question for us. That do we know Jesus? Does he know you? Does he know you? You know, we celebrate all the time that we are full of sin, but we have a great Savior. And we celebrate that every time we do communion. Every time we do that, we celebrate this and we proclaim it as loud as we can that I am a great sinner, but my God, he is a great God and he has saved me. And more than that, I know Jesus, but he knows me by name. Nothing happens that he doesn't know about. Jesus, I need you so desperately. We sang that. And we're going to have communion here in a couple seconds, and the elders are going to come forward. And that's where we would get down to. That my Jesus knows me. And I know myself that I am full of sin. And he knows that and says, I have paid the price for you. That's our grace. So I'm going to